Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new Ninjago video here on the channel. My name is TannerFishies. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the many problems that I personally have with Golden Oni Lloyd as seen in Ninjago Crystalized. Now, Golden Oni Lloyd has been a huge topic of discussion for a lot of Ninjago fans over the past couple of weeks, and for good reason. The execution of Oni Lloyd in Ninjago Crystalized admittedly was not the best, and in today's video, I want to break down some of my own personal problems that I have with Oni Lloyd's representation, and how the Ninjago series maybe could have fixed those issues for me. This video will be very casual, nothing really too major going on in this video right here, in terms of editing that is, and my main goal is to simply put my thoughts out there. While I've been very vocal towards Ninjago Crystalized being pretty successful in a lot of areas, I have to admit that there are indeed problems with the season. It's nowhere near perfect, and many of my problems actually come from the way that Oni Lloyd was treated. For my first little grievance here, I believe the Oni form's design leaves a lot to be desired. Now here's what I mean by the Oni form's design. As we see in Ninjago Crystalized, the show, the Oni form looks pretty sweet. Lloyd has 4 arms, he appears to be very menacing, very Garmadon-esque. Unfortunately, in the Ninjago Crystalized sets, specifically the Ultra Golden Dragon set, or whatever that set is called, I don't really care, which features Golden Oni Lloyd, that minifigure is not at all representative of how he appears in the show. This has been a recurring issue with Ninjago sets and the actual Ninjago show for quite some time now. 9 times out of 10, the minifigures translating to the show, or vice versa, is perfectly done. But sometimes you get a design that leaves a little bit to be desired. Sometimes you get a design that doesn't really have that much consistency. Golden Oni Lloyd is one of the most recent examples of this, and frankly, one of the most offensive. The minifigure that we see in the sets is nowhere near as awesome as the show design is, and unlike previous examples of minifigures being inconsistent from their show models and vice versa, there really isn't a way for Ninjago collectors to modify the current Oni Lloyd minifigure to make it more show accurate. For that, you would need an entirely different torso piece, one that does not exist unless you're willing to paint a minifigure, which a lot of really talented people have already done. Unfortunately, for a lot of Ninjago fans, including myself, that talent just really isn't there, so we're forced to stick with our regular Oni Lloyd minifigure, which does not look as cool as he did in the show. The fix for this is actually quite simple. Either make the show design not have 4 arms, or make the minifigure have 4 arms. I'm not really sure what came first, the chicken or the egg here, but maybe the chicken and the egg could have been a little bit more consistent in terms of a design. For another problem, the Oni Lloyd form doesn't really do anything. It turns out Oni form is not the key to defeating the Overlord. The show spent a large amount of time talking about how Golden Oni Lloyd was supposed to be this ultimate key to defeating the Overlord. Oni form was going to be the only way to defeat the Crystal King, and nothing else could stop him. Unfortunately, when Lloyd actually unlocked Oni form, yeah, he used it against the Overlord for a bit, and it was pretty effective, but what defeated the Overlord was not Oni form. Instead, what defeated him was Lloyd himself, riding on top of the Golden Ultra Dragon. Now, this could be a metaphor for, I guess, not needing to change in order to achieve something great, and if that's the case, that's fantastic. I just wish the show wouldn't have spent so much time building up Oni Lloyd if ultimately the Oni form was not going to be defeating the Overlord here. It just kind of seems like a waste of time, and again, why even include the Oni form if it's not going to really do anything at the very end? Speaking of which, a lot of people have been complaining about this as well. Oni Lloyd has way too little screen time. I'm not really sure how long exactly Oni Lloyd appears on screen, but it certainly is a lot shorter than people expected, especially with the previously established build-up that the season had been constantly pushing regarding Oni form. Turns out Oni form really didn't mean all that much, and it really didn't have that much screen time either. Lloyd uses Oni form once he assumes that Garmadon has been killed, and unleashes chaos upon the Overlord for a bit until he sees his reflection and promptly gets scared of it or something, and he switches back to his human form, and Oni Lloyd is never to be seen again. Sure, we had glimpses of Oni power throughout the entire season, like when Lloyd battled Harumi, or when Lloyd was training with Garmadon, but Golden Oni Lloyd, this is his final form. I just wish it had a little bit more screen time. Maybe he could have unlocked Oni form a little bit earlier in the season. Maybe every single time we see him use Oni power, maybe he could have transformed into his full Oni form in those scenarios. Either way, Golden Oni Lloyd simply had way too little screen time for my taste, and a lot of other Ninjago fans were complaining about that as well. I just wish that it had more screen time, had more to do, because ultimately it kind of does feel like a waste. And for another issue that I have regarding Oni Lloyd, is it just me, or did Lloyd's take on the Oni not really make that much sense compared to other seasons? So Lloyd the entire season tries to reject his Oni form. Obviously he's scared of becoming his father. That was established a long time ago, and since Garmadon is all Oni'd up, Lloyd really doesn't want to be like that, I understand. However, Lloyd kind of treats the Oni like they're all bad, which we know they're not, especially with Mistake helping the ninja during Ninjago Hunted, and a large portion of the Oni trilogy for that matter. It should be obvious to Lloyd that Oni can change and Oni can be good. Now, there are a couple of people in the the Ninjago community that are taking this way too far and trying to label Lloyd's actions as something that it's definitely not. But of course, this is simply flawed writing, which is totally okay to criticize. If they wanted to focus on Lloyd not wanting to become his father, that's one thing. I just wish they would have taken into account what happened in other seasons in order to structure this narrative a little bit better, dare I say. It's not like Ninjago Crystalized needs to stand on its own. In fact, several things from previous seasons make their return in this season right here, so why not build on storylines that were established previously? I'm not really sure why for Golden Oni Lloyd they avoided a lot of the previous storylines that would have made this story make a little bit more sense. Maybe his resentment towards becoming an Oni should have been explored a little bit more, and maybe it should have been a little bit more specific, as opposed to just having the vague statement of Lloyd doesn't want to become his father being the driving force for that narrative. In terms of my problems with Oni Lloyd, those have been the big four. Once again, the design of the Oni form not being consistent, the Oni form not really doing anything, the Oni form having too little screen time, and of course Lloyd's storyline surrounding the Oni doesn't really make that much sense. And I've already given you guys details in each individual segment as to how they could be fixed. However, I feel like a lot of the problems that people have with Oni Lloyd could be solved if the future of Ninjago explores Oni Lloyd a little bit more. If Ninjago Crystalized was simply just set up for the next Ninjago series to explore what Oni Lloyd is all about, that would be awesome. However, I'm not really sure if Ninjago is going to do that, since there really wasn't anything hinting towards that towards the very end of Crystalized. If anything, Lloyd kind of moves on from Oni form, and I would not be surprised if we never see him use that power again, but I think he totally should, because that story could be really interesting to see. It could be really interesting to see Lloyd fall victim to Oni form once again, fall victim to those negative emotions, be controlled by them to an extent. The story and the potential is there. All LEGO and Ninjago need to do is capitalize on Golden Oni Lloyd a little bit more. Maybe even introduce a new minifigure in a future set, which is more show accurate. Who's really to say? Available options are there. It's not like the story is backed into a corner here. The Oni Lloyd story could excel even further in the future. However, like I said, I'm not really sure if Ninjago will do that, because next year seems to be a pretty clean slate for the Ninjago series, as in, they're starting a new series, they're trying to build up a new storyline, but who knows, Ninjago Crystalized borrowed a lot from the Oni trilogy, which was the end of the previous era, so who's to say, maybe in a couple of years we will see Oni Lloyd come back, be explored a little bit more. That would be ideal in my opinion, and I think that would solve a lot of problems that people have with Golden Oni Lloyd in the context of the show, and even the sets. But of course, with that being said, guys, that'll pretty much wrap it up for my thoughts here. I believe I've pretty much talked about everything that I want to talk about in today's video. Again, hopefully you enjoyed this very casual, very laid-back discussion regarding Oni Lloyd. Leave a comment down below discussing what your biggest problem is with Oni Lloyd, or if you don't have any problems, feel free to let me know what you think of my problems. What do you think about the complaints that people have? Just in general, what constructive criticism do you have for Oni Lloyd? Leave all your thoughts down below in the comment section. But of course, with that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to like and subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and I will talk to you guys again in the next video. Peace.